Teammates, first and foremost, if this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how I get down right to the point. Another solo episode. I do these every single day. I mean, the show comes out every single day. And if you are a regular consumer to this work, you already know whatever difficulties you may be having in your life, whatever obstacles may be in your way, whatever the challenges are, you'll know that this show is here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. That's why it's the number one show on innovative teamwork, because what we do here is we help folks. We help folks who really have goals, really have ambitions, and really feel as though, they're just not getting there. There's something in the way they need some assistance in some kind of way, but they just can't pinpoint their finger on exactly what they're going to be needing to move forward. What we do, again, we allow you to understand, and we are here as a reminder for you to realize, hey, I'm not going through this thing alone. Nobody deserves to go through life alone. Nobody deserves to go through challenging and difficult times on their own. All right. So as far as today, we are going to talk, we're going to talk about two things, same situation for me, but how one situation can affect two elements and can bring out truth, can bring out exactly what the issue is and what you're going to need if you want to reach a level of success. All right. If you want to reach a high level of success, these are some things that are going to come up, because they're going to be platforms, they're going to be ways, they're going to be things that you have to do in which you don't have much control over, and you're going to have to adapt to whatever the situation is. And the truth in who you really are is going to start to come out. All right. Let me explain a little further. Let me give you some details now. So, I'm recording this it's October 25th, 2024. In just for the past, throughout the week, I've been having to republish pretty over 100 different podcast episodes. All right. You know how tedious and time consuming it has been. Actually threw off my schedule for my entire week. I have, like I said, I'm recording this actually on a Friday night, and I'm going to be swamped all weekend, doing the normal grind, doing the normal work that I do, but also having to spend time taking care of republishing over 100 different podcast episodes. And this actually started. The this has been coming for a while. This is something that I've actually tried to avoid for a very long time now, but it's something that at this point it got to the point where I couldn't avoid it. So one of the things when I first started this show that I used to do all the time is after every episode, I would put at the end, like before Spotify bought Anchor. So the podcasting platform, actually, let me take you back even further than that, because the podcasting platform that I used to host and put out all my podcasts, it's called anchor.com. It used to be called anchor.com. All right. And eventually Anchor was bought by a company named Spotify, that you probably heard of. Spotify, which primarily started as a music company where people, go, they listen to the music. It's like Apple Music, iTunes, whatever it is, right? Spotify, very well-known company, right? So eventually Spotify went and they bought Anchor. They bought, I believe the number was like $340 million. Spent $340 million on the purchase of Anchor, and I believe they a Gwinnett or something like that. I can't remember the name. The name is escaping me at the moment, but pretty much they bought two podcasting platform apps, which makes sense for them because there's so many users. There's so many people using the platform. Spotify, excuse me. There's so many people who were using the platform Anchor to start up their own podcast, because over the past couple of years, it's become a thing. I started the show around the COVID time, and because people were kind of locked up, a lot of people were starting different podcasts. Very few has actually stand the test of time and have lasted as long as mine did. But again, it was just something that a lot of people were tuning into. Podcasts were becoming a very, very huge thing just about 5 years ago. Actually, honestly, even before that, podcasting was becoming a huge thing, right? So it made sense for Spotify to buy it. And we're going to touch on towards the end of today's episode, we're going to touch on the importance of, mergers that make sense, and figuring out, if you're in business, when does it make sense to sell the company? When does it make sense to buy the company and all that? We're going to dive into the details about that later, right? But as far as right now, one of the main things, the main thing that needs to be said, the main takeaway, one of the main, pretty much the main thing for you as a consumer for today's episode is the importance of having substance. You, my friend, I'm talking directly to you. You have to have substance. You have to have so much substance that you can put out your own material, and you don't have to worry about anybody else coming, or anybody else to validate your show. You don't have to worry about anybody else doing anything or saying something that's going to validate the work you do. At some point, you have got to have the substance. I'm actually, like I said, recording this. It's the last week of October, and we are in the heat of a very long presidential debate, and I am so happy that it's almost a week over. But the candidate, which is Kamala Harris, the candidate Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee, the current vice president, is a woman that I've been very, very critical of, and it's because, in my opinion, she doesn't have, at least what she's shown on TV and everything that she's, through the interviews and through all her talks and all that kind of stuff, it has shown that she doesn't have the substance. So even though, again, she's raised in a Caribbean household like me, Black, and she brought in a former high school football coach as the VP. Whenever I hear her speak, again, there's no substance there, which is why she's not getting my vote. All right, so it's important as you are communicating to people and you want to build your awareness, you want to build your brand, you want to build your organization in this thought leadership world. It's important that you do have substance and you do have a story to tell, because you never know when it's going to be time. Well, let me not just say you never know. You need to know. What you need to know is that there is going to become a time where you and your story and what you say, what comes out of your mouth, the material that you put out there, at some point, it's going to have to be you talking. You're not going to be able, like I said earlier, to use other things and other people's artwork to validate your stuff. And I say all that. I made sure I'm on record saying all of that, because one of the mistakes that I actually made when I first started this show is at the end, and I'm reluctant to call it a mistake, because it wasn't like I was doing anything. It wasn't anything like foul or in unethical or anything like that. But one of the things I would do is, whenever I would record an episode, whether it's just myself speaking or if I had a guest, I would find a song, some song. I would always have a song at the end of every episode. And for you regular listeners, you probably remember those days, right? Where after every episode, whether it be 30 minutes long, 40 minutes long, 50 minutes long, even maybe a shorter episode that was 20 or so minutes long, there was a really a popular song that would just start playing at the end, and it would just fit right. It would be the right touch after a nice long, right, and after a nice motivating episode, energetic episode in which got you excited, all that kind of stuff. There'll be a great song at the end, and then that'll end the episode perfectly, right? So here's what happened. A couple months ago, I got monetized. My YouTube channel got monetized, and I realized that I can take the podcast and I could put the entire podcast on YouTube, right? So once I realized all it takes is for me to just copy an RSS feed and put my YouTube channel, and once it got monetized, YouTube has become now my biggest platform. In fact, I don't even send people to the podcasting app no more when I tell them to listen to the show. I actually I send them to my YouTube channel, right? So once I became monetized and I put the podcasting app on YouTube, I remember when all these episodes were going on YouTube, and I remember getting emails, just bombarded with hundreds of emails saying so and so episode is ineligible to be monetized, not being able to be monetized, can't be monetized. And the reason they gave was because of the songs that were at the end of each episode. They were copyright issues, and now that I'm monetized, it's not going to be allowed to, have the song and the YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. So I actually spent, again, it was one of those things where I spent too long, in my opinion, too long trying to rectify this issue. So I tried to basically go to each episode And I thought YouTube, what it said was YouTube was going to be able to automatically trim that part out of the episode. So I kept trying to do that. That didn't work. Over time, it just didn't work, and it was just too many episodes. And I just said, look, you know what? Forget about it. I produce enough content now to where I'll just leave those videos not being eligible to be monetized, or I'm just gonna move forward with the plan and bring in more or put out more material, more original content, and all that. In fact, I remember there was a day in which it was really getting frustrated, and I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it because even though what happened actually, because I remember what happened was I actually would delete these episodes. I spent time deleting all the episodes that weren't eligible to be monetized, but the problem is these episodes keep popping up. It populates automatically when you put the RSS feed on YouTube. It's just the episodes, everything on there just keeps popping up over and over and over and over and over again. And I was just like, look, this is too tedious, whatever. Just put it out there. It is what it is. All right. It's out there now. And that's just, again, that's just the name of the game when it comes to being a content creator and putting out your work and putting out your material as frequently as I do. Right. So what happened recently was the the new podcast app, the new podcast. So nowadays, from about Monday through Friday, usually the episode debuts on YouTube first, and then it comes out on the podcast app that night. All right, except when it's a solo episode, because usually I record my solo episodes on Zoom. It usually goes through the podcast app first, and then it goes to YouTube. So whenever it's like an episode like I'm doing now, where it's just me speaking, it's initially going to come out on the podcast app and then go to YouTube, right? So there was a time just about a week ago where I kept getting this email. Well, yeah, I got an email saying that it's having trouble loading, or it was taking a really long time for the solo episode to get loaded on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't think much of it. I just like, look, man, I done been down this road with YouTube and this podcast connection. I don't even like talking technology. I don't even look at technology. I want to just get back to recording the content and putting the material out there and serving you, serving the listener, serving the people that are out there tuning into my work and definitely want to use my services, the business owners that I pride myself in showing up for every single day and all that kind of stuff. So I just said, forget it. Look, I don't got time for this. I really don't got time for this. All right. And then all of a sudden, I got an email from the podcasting app, which is now Spotify for Anchor, saying, hey, there's over 100 episodes now that have 24 hours to be rectified. Or if you don't rectify the situation with all these episodes, they're all going to go down. They gave me literally a very hard 24 hours to say, you need to rectify. And they listed well over 100 episodes that all have music at the end because that part of it wasn't taken care of. So when Spotify buys Anchor, which is primarily known as a music, and I believe there's some revenue share that comes with Spotify users and the actual, music artists and all that. When I have that music at the end of the episode, Spotify eventually flagged that and they emailed me and they say there's 24 hours or you could take these episodes down. So I got this email. I got this email like in the morning. I'm like, oh my goodness. All right. So I had to take care of it right away because they only gave me 24 hours or there'll be over 100 episodes of this show that were going to be trashed or that were going to just be deleted and, lost, great content that was lost. So immediately I had to respond to it. I had to go check what the options were. And one of the options was to unpublish it, unpublish it and take care of the situation on my own or take care of the situation myself. So obviously I'm not going to try to fight it. I know the music is not my music at the end of every episode. So I'm like, all right, I'll unpublish it and see what I can do to at least trim the music part out of the episode and then republish it and all that. And again, this is over 100 episodes. So it's been taking me, I'm about halfway done now. I believe I'm down to 50. Hopefully it'll be done within the next 2 to 3 days or so. I can get all of them trimmed and get all the music trimmed and republished again, which is why if you're following me on this, but if you keep up with the notification, which was, by the way, you need to be turning your notifications on, but if you have the notifications on for this podcast, you're probably seeing a bunch of episodes just popping up over and over, a bunch of older episodes, or you may have been listening to one and you realize, wait a minute, he's talking about something 2020 where damn near 2025 now. That's the reason. All right. And if I didn't have the substance, if I didn't actually have good material to go along with the music, then again, the podcast would just, again, it would have been null and void, and they would have just simply, I would have absolutely nothing, no material to post. All right. So again, it gets me to my point, which is you can't use other people to validate your work. All right. And again, not to get too deep into politics right now, but one of the things that the Harris campaign is doing is making another mistake in is constantly bringing in a lot of celebrities that people know and get people excited and all that. But eventually, the critical thinkers, the people that, use their common sense like myself, we're going to realize, hey, Kamala Harris needs to be the show. These celebrities that she's bringing in, whether it's Usher, whether it's Taylor Swift, whether it's Beyonce, whether it's Tyler Perry, whether it's Eminem, doesn't matter who it is. Eventually, these people are not going to be working with her in office. And these people, these celebrities, major celebrities, cannot relate to the very people that she's promising to serve and the people that she needs to be talking to, which is the issue. I mean, just think about the contradiction. You're screaming and screaming and screaming about how you're going to help the middle class, yet you bring a bunch of celebrities that are not in the middle class here to endorse you and to try to validate you as a person, which is the mistake that she is making. And it's something that you need to be learning as you develop in business. And eventually, you can't be using celebrities as a scapegoat. You can't be using people to validate your work and validate the things that you're all about, which is, as I'm in the process of taking this music off of this podcast, I realize, hey, I have enough content on my own. I have enough ability on my own to where I can work. I can put my stuff out without needing the validation of some song or some, recording or some famous recording artist to validate the work I do. And once I realized, look, having that music is going to be a problem. Once I realized that months ago, as you can see, I stopped putting the music on. One of the things that actually was really annoying about the fact that Anchor was bought out by Spotify is I couldn't place the intro, the Rocky Beat intro that you would hear on this podcast to begin it. I couldn't put that intro on the podcast anymore, and I'll have my video guy working on a new intro video. But at the same time, it gets frustrating because the way it works now is they record off something. Spotify now records with something called Riverside, and Riverside is primarily a video platform, and it's primarily, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they do it with lives and stuff like that. And the long story short is it's completely different. The podcasting app in which I publish my podcast on, it's completely different than what it was when I started. All right. But what is not different, what is 1000% going to remain the same, is the fact that I have the substance. I am the talent. I have the ability to speak. I have the ability to relay the message on to you guys. And that needs to be the focus. And that is the major lesson from today's episode is, do you have the ability? So regardless of the changes, regardless of the mergers, regardless of what may happen outside of your control, you have to have the ability. You have to have the skill set. You have to work at your ability to the point where none of it actually matters. Hey, if it gets to a situation, again, if you're looking at my personal situation, my example, hey, if I have to cut the music and just make it so Aswan is speaking or Aswan and a guest is just producing original content, so be it. I'm able to do that as well. The music was just a nice touch at the end of the episode, but it's not going to be the end all be all of the show. All right, so that's the main thing. Number one, having substance. Second, and the thing I'll close you guys out soon when it comes to this is, when it comes to being in business, are you making the right merger? Are you setting yourself up to either buy the right company, whether you're the Spotify and you're the well-known company that's coming in and seeing another company like Anchor do well, and you're coming in and say, okay, look, I'm gonna acquire this company and I'm going to make it move a little more efficiently, or I'm going to, do what I'm going to take advantage of the fact that they have so many different users. If you're the Spotify coming in, how are you evaluating the companies? How are you evaluating the companies that you go out and buy? Or if you're the Anchor that's been able to kind of have the grassroots feeling, to pull in the people, are you setting yourself up in a situation where when and if you do get acquired, you're making it so you get acquired, and your trade-offs and the things that happen during the acquisition isn't going to throw your user off so much that you actually lose the users that you initially had. These are the things that we have to be taken away. All right, when it comes to the talent, when it comes to the difference between somebody, again, like myself, who actually has the substance, versus, again, the company like the Anchor or the company like the Spotify that's trying to figure out the right medium, the right way to have a solid partnership. And everything considered, and I don't know what the details are when it comes to the acquisition between Spotify and Anchor. But what I can tell you from the consumer's perspective, someone that actually uses the platform, I think they did an okay job. All right. I could vent a little bit about, the user experience a little bit, but for the most part, it's making it so the actual creator that has the talent is going to continue to publish shows without needing to put music, without needing to use other clips and use other people's stuff to validate their episodes, which is exactly what I'm all about, and exactly why I started the show, and exactly what I coach people and help people to figure out through this show and through this medium, is to figure out, okay, I have the talent to speak. I'm just going to speak on camera. And that's the one thing that didn't change within that acquisition. So you got to be thinking about this in all facets. All right. Now, close you out just with a recap. Number one, you have to, and this is just, again, the takeaway from today's episode, which is all about creating substance, making sure you have not creating substance, but also always making sure, or excuse me, let me say it like this. Always asking yourself, do you have the ability to do the particular task that you're trying to accomplish? All right. That's number one. You have to ask yourself, do you have the ability? Do you have the skill set to do it? Next thing that you have to be aware of are the variables and the things that can change the platforms and the way mergers happen, the way companies acquire this company or this company gets sold to that. You have to be willing to, or you have to be able to adapt during those sorts of changes, and know that you are still going to be okay with or without another person that has done the work, validating whatever the work it is you're attempting to do. All right. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.